Audio Unleashed.
You ready to rock?
Yeah, this is Audio Unleashed.
It's true. We said that in the intro already.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
But we've already been criticized for our intro sounding harsh and grating.
I believe the gentleman compared it to a yard sale. I'm not sure I really understood that. Maybe he was talking about like garage rock or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
maybe
some people like it. Some people hate it.
It's our art, man. We can't just change it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's bored by it, but we got some banger topics this week, buddy. I want to start with, this is a piece from Stereophile. I think it's safe to say this is going to be the shortest article we've talked about in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to drop the headline now and not even give a summary because I think it says it all. Comments retired, letters welcome. We're all ears by Stereophile staff. Long story short, they're cutting off the comments section and we've got thoughts. We're going to share them.
Yeah, and we initially thought this was because of us.
That's because we've got gigantic egos.
Maybe we pushed them 1% in that direction. Who knows?
Maybe. I think the comments on that Wire Loom article may have been what pushed them over the edge.
Maybe so. Boy, yeah, and those were there before we started. So
it's true. That was all out war. But anyway, what do you want to talk about this week, buddy?
I want to talk about the new Warwick Acoustics Apereo Golden Sound Edition headphones and amp combo. And this is a $38,000 combination of headphones and amp. And they're electrostatic, so it's not just like in the old generic amp. They had to actually do stuff. And they're voiced by Cameron Oatley, who's the Golden Sound person who was he threatened to sue him a while back?
DCS.
Oh, DCS, yeah. And, so he's a little bit of a hero to us, I think, and to a lot of online audio people for, standing up. But, this is a $38,000 thing that he has voiced and presumably is getting some money off of. I got to assume, if someone said, hey, would you voice a Brent Butterworth, headphone? I'd be kind of like, well, what do I get? Well, you get a free set of the headphones. I'm kind of like, how many of those do I need? So we're going to talk about this, though, because, this has happened a lot. This never happened before, right? This would have been verboten 20, 30 years ago. But now it's really quite common. And a lot of these online reviewers and influencers do their own endorsed audio products. And we should talk about this and talk about how we feel about it and what the possible issues are and what the possible upsides are. It's interesting. Nobody's asked us to do this, and we probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
But, you never say never. How much money? We'll talk about that, too.
Yeah.
And after that, we have what?
We have an article that you sent me from Flat Panels HD, written by one Rasmus Larson. Headline is Apple's new spatial audio format goes beyond Dolby Atmos. The deck is Dolby Atmos is safe for now, but Apple is taking spatial audio to the next level with its Apple Spatial Audio format, ASAF. It plays on most Apple platforms, but excels on Vision OS. I have to admit, I've got some questions. I've got more questions than answers about this one. And maybe you've got some insights, but the long and short of it is, we're seeing a big trend here recently where companies are developing their own non-Dolby spatial audio formats for different reasons. Is this that? Does it play into the same trend? Is Apple trying to get away from Dolby? I don't think so, but maybe I'm reading it wrong. I'm going to be very interested to get your thoughts on this one. What are we going to do for patrons?
We are going to be talking about, either an article or a video or both. It's an article that was based on a video. The video is called The Real Reason Klipsch Speakers Measure Badly. Klipsch's principal engineer spills all. And who was this by? It's a guy named Thomas, right?
Thomas and Stereo.
Yeah. There's a million people walking by. He's just in the hallway asking Roy Delgado, who's the Klipsch chief engineer, a lot of questions. And we wanted to talk about this because I felt like it was an earnest effort. But it's there's so much in this industry where people who've never done measurements disparage them, and then the comments sections fill up with a bunch of really dreary comments that are like, trust your ears, don't trust the measurements, and all this kind of stuff.
Conventional wisdom, I think, would be the way I would put it.
Yeah, but it's not wisdom at all. Unfortunately, a lot of this same wisdom trickles up into the mainstream audio publications.
Yeah.
I don't care if Thomas in Stereo does this, but the fact that these ideas continue in audio is completely not helpful, except to people who make bad audio gear. Not clips, okay? Not saying clips, but like people who make bad audio gear can say, oh, don't trust the measurements, trust your ears. Or people who make audio gear that doesn't actually do anything, or that doesn't have doesn't have a measurable or effect,
plausible.
or a plausible effect, or an effect that's detectable in controlled listening tests.
But first, let's dig into this new policy from Stereophile. And the funny thing is, like I said in the intro, this is literally the shortest article we've ever commented on. So this is one of those things where we could just read the entire thing. Do you want to read it? You want me to read it? Do you want to? Let's just go through it.
I'm going to read it. I think I can lend a more dramatic flair than you can.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Thank you for being an enraged. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for being an engaged. Freudian slip. Thank you for being an engaged part of the Stereophile community. We have retired the in-page commenting feature on our website, but we still want to hear from you. Please email your thoughts, questions, and system notes to stletters@stereophile.com. Selected letters will continue to appear in the magazine and online. Your feedback shapes our reporting and reviews. We appreciate every note you send. The Stereophile team.
That's it. That's the entire article. I mean, I don't guess it needed to be any longer than that. But what do you think prompted this, buddy? I know we had our joke about, did we cause this? But
I thought, because we did that, we really tore apart those absurd Martin Collins articles that appeared in Stereophile recently. And I thought, man, and then I saw that they turned off the comments on them. And because I wanted to see, did we get did we generate any extra comments on there? And but then they're off. I'm kind of like, victory. But no, then I saw this. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Given that you and I are media insiders to some extent, I think we probably have a little bit more compassion for this than people might expect us to have.
Yeah.
Comment sections are a lot of work. I mean, maybe not on YouTube where you get, a Gutenberg or somebody like that might get hundreds of comments. They can't possibly look at them all. And, but with these kind of articles, these textual articles, they don't get as many comments, and they also get a lot of garbage. So I'm on, as a lot of people know, I did the Soundstage Solo headphone review site for 5-6 years, something like that. And I used to get the comments on it. And I could, approve the comments or answer them or do whatever I wanted or delete them, whatever. And there's a whole lot of garbage. I mean, you really have to police it, because there's a lot of people, you think it's just going to be a bunch of cranks, but I'd say probably more than half of it is people who are trying to sneak in links to their website or something. And just for ads for unrelated stuff. And they'll say great article. Hey, I just found a great deal on these online mattresses. Check this out. You got to weed that stuff out. And it takes some time and at least some of your attention. And it's also slightly depressing. And then you will get some cranks. And I take on all cranks, as you know, because we worked at Home Theater Review together. And and there, I so missed that because the guy who owned it at the time, Jerry Del Cagliano, just didn't care.
Well, he actively encouraged it, mind you, because it was engagement. That was another page hit for him. If he pissed somebody off and they came back to be like, you're an idiot. Well, hey, thanks for the click.
Yeah. So I never called anybody an idiot. I might have implied.
I was about to say, you didn't use the word idiot, but there was not much mistaking it.
There were some people who disagree with me, and that was great. There were some people, a couple cases, I might have been like, oh, I didn't think about that. Great.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of cases of people who just have wrong information. There were some cases of people who just wanted to tear me down. Those are the ones I loved the best because they were also, oh God, like the one guy who was talking about how you need to cross over subwoofers at 200 hertz with a first order filter. And he's like, if you don't do it this way, the sound is constipated, kind of like you're writing. And, for me, it's like, bring that on. And I just fricasseed him. I loved it. It didn't bother me a bit. It's harder at, say, Wirecutter, because I have to really be nice at Wirecutter. Usually there, we will get a cup. I've had 2 people removed. Just because there was one guy who, when we had an article about cables that Jeff Morrison did, speaker cables, and we basically said, look, we could hear extremely tiny differences maybe, but this is silly. And one guy, and we recommended these monoprice cables, and one guy who was a big convert to MIT or something, Music Interface Technologies or something. And they had these boxes with a couple of chokes in them. Oh, yeah. Hooked up to the wires that were supposed to do something. Yeah. And, he had a bunch of them. And, he was like, these are so great. I'm like, look, double blind tests show that this stuff doesn't matter. He's like, here's all these blind tests that showed. And none of them did. He just put these links in that you'd have to follow. Yeah. And then he accused me of pandering to monoprice so I could get free cable from him. And at that point, I wanted to point out just how stupid that is, because monoprice cables are essentially free.
I was about to say, that would be like saying somebody who's pandering to McDonald's to get free coffee, man.
I know. It was so, and I wanted to say, I was sitting here saying, how can I just destroy this guy? But then I thought, no. And I got Wirecutter to remove him. And there's also a very, very famous audio writer. Some call him the dean of audio writers, who has gotten onto Wirecutter a couple times, and we've removed him because he gets onto comment sections and he starts trashing all the people on it. And all this stuff. Yeah. And you gotta get rid of him.
He's basically the sort that thinks that if you write an article about his subject and you don't quote him, then it's dereliction of duty, because he should be quoted in any article about that subject. So
yes. What do you think, Dennis? Is this expedience or is this cowardice?
I want to back up to something, though. Before I answer that question, I want to back up to something, because I'd like to get some clarity from you on a subject. You were talking at the beginning about the comments section on Soundstage Solo. Now, as a lot of people know, I am the editor of Soundstage Access, which is one of the 1,000,003 other Soundstage Network publications, but none of the other Soundstage Network publications have comment sections. Soundstage Solo did have a comment section. Let's talk a little bit about why. Why is that the only site that had a comment section?
Well, we have to point out that in a content management system, that's just a switch you flip, a little button you click, whether you want comments or not. Yeah. And I insisted on it. And Doug Schneider, who runs it, he was cool with it. And I think he actually enjoyed it. I think he just didn't want to, I think with him, it was a matter of partly expedience of not having to manage it all. Partly, I think he probably didn't want his advertisers trashed on there. If you have advertisers, people are going to get on there and trash them, not because they're your advertisers, just because you're probably covering them. And every manufacturer is going to get trashed at some point on the comment sections.
That's a point I was about to make. That's a point. I almost wondered, I wanted to speculate, were the comments about AudioQuest in that Martin Collins column the reason that I wonder if perhaps they were like, oh, this is going to make AudioQuest mad. Let's just, you know what? Let's just cut them. Let's just cut comments, because this is not making the advertisers happy. So
it could be. I mean, we can only, I would even hesitate to speculate, though. It could have been that.
Could have been.
It could have also been that they just decided they've got a couple of people that work full time on this thing now. And they might have just decided, you know what? Our lives are too busy right now. We got to cut something out of our workload. And this is something we can cut out of our workload. And I can tell you, you cut things like this out of your life and your life does not get worse.
Right. Yeah.
So honestly, I do it. A lot of the reason I insist on it, and a lot of the reason I'm happy Wirecutter has it, and a lot of the reason I get onto my comment sections all the time and as often as I can and look and see what people are saying is, readers will find a lot of times will know about problems with a product that I didn't find in my testing.
Mm-hmm.
And also the readers get on things like Reddit and stuff, which, I don't get onto. And we'll find out about problems. And then also readers will say, how come you didn't review this? I'm like, oh, I didn't even know about that thing.
Yeah.
And so I find it really, it's it saves me hours of having to go online and try to find things. And so to me, it's a shortcut. It's a really useful shortcut. And I can go on there and I can defend myself when people question what I say. And also a lot of times people have questions.
Yeah.
That's why my email is readily available.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always liked having communications with readers. And plus I'm bulletproof at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so old and so experienced that like anybody who knows more about audio than I do, about some area of audio, I do, I should say, because you don't know more in general than I do probably about audio, but you might know more about a specific area, is probably a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And if they've learned that much, they're probably pretty solid citizens and they're not jerks.
Right. Yeah. We could do a whole episode about this, I think, and we would veer into territory that is not necessarily the domain of Audio Unleashed. But I mean, I think a large part this is not necessarily just a specific publication thing. It's an internet thing at large, in that as the world becomes more entrenched in tribalism and everything becomes very binary. You're either with me or you're against me, right? You either agree with me on this thing or you're my enemy. And the comment section, I don't have to put my real name, so this is a chance for me to dive into, I guess, whatever the equivalent of the culture war is that would apply here. We're tending toward comment sections getting nastier and nastier, and we've been tending that way for a long, long time. So, and also just spammy. It's like you said. I mean, I think most of the comments that I saw coming through Home Theater Review when I was still moderating that was just bots. It was not a human being typing a thing. It was a spider crawling around the internet, finding a series of words that it could latch onto and leaving a comment to try to get you to go buy, I don't know, used underwear or something. Just completely irrelevant stuff. But yeah, I'm of two minds about this. I can see why the Stereophile team would want to shut it down, because also, let's face it, there's probably only one person at Stereophile who I think would have an approach to comments like yours, like, ooh, hey, I missed this and I want to know about it. And it seems to me that most of the people that are at Stereophile these days are more like, nope. But nope, we've got our opinion. We're not changing it. This is the best opinion that money can buy, and no comment is going to sway us from that path. So why bother? I don't know if any of that really has anything to do with their decision. And unless they told us, how would we know? But what good did the Stereophile comment section really do other than provide endless entertainment for you and me anyway? Did it
I know.
Did it ever change anything? No, it was just a battleground, and that's it.
Now, we should point out that, Stereophile still has a YouTube channel, and YouTube comments are open. Can you close YouTube comments?
Yeah.
I think you can. Right?
I mean, literally every video of ours that I post, I have to decide, is it going to be auto-moderated? Is it going to be Wild West? Or am I turning comments off? So you can turn off comments for a specific video if you want.
Okay, so I checked a few, and they do have comments open. Same with Absolute Sound. They don't have comments on their text articles on the website, but they do have comments on their YouTube channel. And like you said, Soundstage has them only on that one. And if Jeff listens to this, he'll be kind of like, ooh, I'm getting those turned off. But it was great for me when I was on Soundstage Solo, because I had probably 10 people on there that would routinely get on there and comment, and were really cool. And like, dudes who were like, hey, have you checked out these headphones? I'm kind of like, no, didn't know about those. And I usually would check them out. I was just on there today just to see if it was still working. And there was a dude one of the dudes I used to correspond with was mentioning a new critical tuned headphone, just to, foreshadowing into our
little bit of Chekhov's gun there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, ooh, those look cool. I should check those out, partly because they're $22. But anyway, I'm disappointed because it's just fun to read this stuff. And YouTube, there's just so many comments that you just can't, it's just impossible to sort through them all. And they're also not as well thought out, I think, as people that were writing into Stereophile. I will commend them because there were a lot of really well thought out comments there.
Yeah.
That I liked reading, and that's why I read them. And I will miss this feature of the Stereophile website.
Yeah.
And so all I can say to Stereophile is I'm sad about this, but keep those Martin Collins articles coming. So we have something to talk about.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I've said about as much on this topic as I've got to say. You want to take a break, get a drink of water, and come back and talk about $38,000 headphones?
Let's do it. Be right back. Okay, give me a more enthusiastic unleash this time, please.
Okay.
All right, we're back. This is audio.
Unleashed.
That's more like it. And we are here to talk about the Warwick Acoustics Aperio Golden Sound Edition headphones and amp combo. Available now, sort of available, on headphones.com for $38,000. It says, though, it's pre-order, and it says orders are expected to ship in March. And maybe this has been up for a long time, and it was supposed to ship in March of this year, and they're delayed, or maybe it's really not shipping until March of next year, which I'm like,
wow.
That would be surprising.
Yeah, I'm not putting 25% down on this thing if it's not shipping until March of next year. Come on.
So I think maybe they just missed the ship date. Also, how many of these are they making? So, and also, I mean, I think they're probably all essentially handmade. So it's not like, production line issues. And I assume they're not shipping it in from, well, I'm sure some parts are made in China, but the final assembly's probably somewhere in North America or Europe. I don't know.
Or England, probably.
Or, well, yes, Europe.
Not anymore.
I don't know. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Well, I don't know this company that well, Warwick Acoustics. They've been around for a while. They had like a DSD-based headphone amp and electrostatic headphones. These are electrostatic. They have the one thing I can find that's really distinctive about them, and I'm not an expert on electrostatic headphones. I think I've reviewed one set ever, but these have an 1800 volt bias voltage, which is, normally it's more like 500, 600. Is that better? I don't know, but I'm sure it's a fine product, and I have heard their headphones, and I think they were pretty good. But these were voiced by Cameron Oatley, who is from Golden Sound, which is a YouTube channel, and I saw this and I would probably have thought nothing of it because a lot of other people do voicings. There's Critical is probably the most famous, and he actually kind of quit reviewing and started his own company to do his own stuff. And he also does a lot of Critical X whoever with Lin Sol and Chinese companies like that, right?
Yeah.
And I actually really admire him. I think he's a great personality, and I don't agree with everything he says about audio, but he at least makes a case for everything he says about audio. And that's someone worth following, and I actually bought a couple of the earphones that he has done, and they were pretty good. So, but the difference is, the 7 Hertz X Critical earphones are $22 on Amazon.
Yeah.
And this is $38,000.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. I got to assume he's getting some money for it. I wouldn't do this for free. I mean, I have actually voiced product, for manufacturers and gotten paid as a consultant for it, but I didn't get any money and they didn't publicize my name.
Yeah, I was about to say they didn't go out and call it, the whatever Brent Butterworth edition.
No, there were a couple who wanted to, but I couldn't continue as a reviewer. I mean, if you're a YouTube guy, you can keep right on going, but if you're working for the New York Times company, you can't do that.
Right.
So I didn't want to give up. It's like I didn't want to change my life that much and give up everything I do to go become a headphone voicer consulting guy. So anyway.
Well, it would be really easy for you because you'd be just take the Harden curve and tweak this a little bit. Just make it a little different. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't mess with this region. Tweak that a little, whatever,
Yeah. And half the time when you're a consultant, they don't listen to you anyway.
Yeah.
So they were the first headphones I ever consulted on. Boy, they were pretty bad, and they did not listen to me. I don't think they never actually brought them to market. Thank God. The interesting thing, though, is this thing is so expensive. So if this guy's even making 5%, that's a pretty good chunk of change on one of these. I mean, that's, 5% of 38,000 is $1,900. And so, that's in line with what I used to charge for consulting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you sell one and you make a reasonable consulting fee, and then you sell two and you sell 10 and you're in the money. And I assume they're going to sell 10 of these things. But I mean, the thing is, I don't see a conflict of interest here because it's all out in the open. Do you see a conflict of interest here?
Maybe if I thought about that question more, I would have an opinion about it, but I'm kind of overwhelmed by other things to the point to where I can't focus on that. One of the things is, and now in the manufacturer's language, they talk about the Apereo GSE is designed for those who seek the absolute best in sound quality, combining cutting-edge technology with bespoke tuning for uniquely immersive sound. They call this thing the creme de la creme of peak audiophile nirvana. But and deeper, here's a paragraph that I want to read in its entirety and just sort of explain some of my confusion. The deck here is a bespoke tuning experience. The Golden Sound Edition offers a uniquely tailored listening experience. Warwick Acoustics and Golden Sound collaborated to refine every aspect of the system's tuning, from bass extension to treble refinement, ensuring that no detail was left untouched. But uniquely tailored, what does that mean? And there's further confusion on my part because there's a little video where Cameron talks about this, and he says, we were able to make some quite complex and very precise considered changes that simply would not have been possible without the platform and technology that Warwick has created. The end result being a response that conforms extremely closely to the head-related transfer function of the human auditory system, with some careful and considered changes to provide the most immersive and engaging experience possible. Well, here's the problem with that, as you know way better than I do and could explain much better than I could. The head-related transfer function is different for every human being. So, how are you going to conform extremely closely to the head-related transfer function of the human auditory system? So there's a lot of mixed signals here where they're talking about hyper-personalization and hyper-bespoke tailored, but then they're shooting for some, average HRTF? I don't know. There's just a lot that I can't parse here, which makes me think that it's just marketing gobble.
Look, this guy's smart. All right. This guy is not a reviewer that is the kind of reviewer we're going to trash. This guy's got his act together. And however, HRTFs are different for everybody. And I've actually seen my measured HRTF versus other people's because I've actually had it measured once in an anechoic chamber. But, there are general HRTF commonalities among humans. And that's what they use to develop the sort of one-size-fits-all virtualizers. Like you use for Dolby Atmos, to fold Dolby Atmos down into two channels. And, Apple has their own virtualizer that they use. And, and they work to some degree. they work differently for different people. Dolby headphone was the same thing when I was working at Dolby. And well, for some people, they don't work so good. For some people, they work pretty good. And I've actually heard 3 times in my life, headphone sound tuned specifically for my HRTF, and it is an astounding thing. It is a great thing. The only thing that can really do that, to my knowledge, is that you can go buy is the Smith Realizer.
Right.
And that has insert microphones, and you have to play sound through a surround sound system, and it's a complicated calibration process. I think they're like $4,000 or something, and you can use them with any headphones.
But they're not doing that here, though.
No, they don't seem to be, and nor do they seem to have like a technology like, what is that thing, Mimi? Right?
Yeah, right.
There's a bunch of different licensed technologies that you can get where it'll test your hearing and tune it for your hearing. And there have been attempts by some, including Sony, Creative Labs, a few others, to sort of measure your HRTFs using photos or whatever, and try to tune, to optimize the sound for that. I have not encountered any of those that really worked. I'm sure this is a fine product. I bet it sounds really good. Well, I wouldn't pay $38,000 for a headphone amp and headphones. But, I got to say, you're looking at the headphones.com site, they got a lot of $8,000, $10,000 headphone amps on there, which there's absolutely no reason a headphone amp needs to cost $10,000. No. But some of them do. I mean, a lot of it's, cosmetic, and a lot of it's got big, huge tubes and all this kind of stuff. And it's really cool looking. And they're only making 20, 30 of them. Yeah. So if you really got a lot of money to throw around, sure, why not? But sure. That's what the big problem I have is it's tuned to where he likes it, and you're kind of signing on to that, right? Yeah. You're like, okay, this guy's an expert, so I'm going to buy what this expert likes. And that's okay. If there were some Steve Guttenberg headphones that were $80 or $90, I'd probably buy them, and just for kicks, right? And I really don't know if I'd like them or not. It's a big question mark. Yeah. And I'll have to mention this to Steve. That'd be so. Next time I have lunch with him or something, I'll mention this. Because I just don't know. I sometimes I agree with him, and sometimes I'm like, what were you thinking? Yeah. But I guess it's good. It's like if you have, I don't know, what is it, like Magic Jordan shoes or something?
Air Jordan.
Not Magic. No, Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Air or is it Jordan. Michael Jordan? Who
Michael
has the
Jordan.
shoes?
The Air Jordans are, Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are Nikes.
I don't know any. Yeah, that's sport thing.
Yeah.
And
one of them with the ball. Yeah.
Yes. People buy those shoes, I guess, because they have the guy's name on them. And likewise, with guitars, which I do buy, a lot of those are endorsed products, and a lot of them are, a lot of them go for thousands of dollars, and they seemingly have no distinction other than the endorsement. And I got to tell you, they could do a lot worse than Cameron Oatley on this. I mean, this guy's a good reviewer, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, he is.
So it's like they could have gotten some nut job and had him do it, and it would have been maybe bad. So that's why I consider and say, yeah, it's probably a pretty good product. I'd like to hear this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with him doing this. And, let's really not pick nits about reviewers making money these days.
I was about to say, this is kind of, man, if you really want to, if you want to live somewhere that's not Alabama and you want to make a decent living, stuff like this is kind of like how you got to do it, man. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you sell one of those, you could buy a house in Alabama.
Pretty much.
They cost about as much as a house in Alabama.
Well, like maybe half a house. Maybe half a house.
Still.
maybe you could buy half a duplex. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that that's where we are. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that people are so used to getting content for free today. And so much of the paid content is unfortunately no better than the free content. And honestly, there are people on Reddit who probably have as much legitimacy as anybody who's getting paid to do this stuff, but they just do it for the love of it, So I'm torn about this. Brother's got to eat. There's no doubt about that. I don't bemoan him for shooting his shot and making a buck, but I still feel weird about this whole product because so much of it is more of a marketing exercise than a product design exercise, in my opinion.
This is basically celebrity endorsed headphones.
Yeah.
And that was always about the marketing, never about the sound. This is more about the sound. This guy actually does, unlike, say, I don't know, Dr. Dre or somebody, actually knows how to voice a headphone, I assume.
Yeah.
Although I got to say, he's got Zoo speakers in the back of the background of all these videos and photos. It's like, well, you like those? Those are a long way from flat, man.
Yeah.
And those are the speakers you like?
Yeah.
And like, I gotta say that's probably, I would not have put those back there. Put something that at least, look, if you want to get a boutique brand, get like John DeVore, get like DeVore Fidelity, because his stuff actually, I mean, it's kind of a little wacky and stuff, but it still measures good, and people don't trash it. Yeah. Guys like me don't trash it. Guys are gonna be like, yeah, it's actually a good speaker. Yeah. So just saying, like. Nothing wrong with Zoo. If you like that, that's fine. But that puts you in the Guttenberg camp and the Herb Riker camp of like guys who like some stuff that's pretty, really good, normal stuff, but who also like some things that are pretty wacky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and if I'm like putting myself out there as an authority on voicing any audio product, I really I want to have something that is like a real textbook product in the background behind me.
Yeah.
I don't really want to have something in there that is not, as we said in the last episode, what I would call a real speaker.
Yeah.
So have we said our piece about the Warwick Acoustic Superior Golden Sound Edition $38,000 headphones plus amp combo?
For now, I think we have. Yeah, maybe we'll have more to say if somebody measures these.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to measure
somebody
these.
Reviews it. Nobody's going to review it.
Nobody's going to measure these. That's so they can get away with saying things like the Golden Sound Edition is not just a technical exercise. It's an audiophile's dream designed to provide an immersive, lifelike listening experience, blah, 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 blah. They don't tell you anything. It's just, this is the best. This redefines high end. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah. What's your audiophile's dream, Dennis?
Oh, my audiophile's dream. I don't know. Maybe a good digital remaster of Buckingham Nicks. That would be my audiophile's dream, but that's never going to happen. So for now, I have to listen to it on vinyl. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what my audiophile dream is?
What is it, bud?
Not writing about audio anymore, so I have more time to listen to music.
Ooh. That is a dream. It's like
gonna make that happen one day.
Yeah. All right. Well, for now, let's go get some water, take a bathroom break, and come back. And what are we talking about? Oh, Apple.
Apple.
And welcome back. This is Audio Unleashed. Nice. You're looking to put me out of business, buddy. Why do you need me anymore if you could do that?
Man, I caught you sleeping. You're getting lazy about your unleashed.
That's a good point. I am getting lazy in my old age. Anyway, This time around, as I said in the intro, we're talking about Apple's new spatial audio format. The headline of this article from Flat Panels HD, bylined by Rasmus Larsen, is Apple's new spatial audio format goes beyond Dolby Atmos. Deck is Dolby Atmos is safe for now, but Apple is taking spatial audio to the next level with its Apple Spatial Audio Format, ASAF. It plays on most Apple platforms, but excels on Vision OS. So you, I think, took a way deeper dive than I did into Apple's engineering documentation on this.
Yeah.
I glanced over it.
It was a little, it wasn't deep, though. I will say that. It wasn't deep.
Okay.
It's 5 pages. I mean,
yeah, that's not too much. I kind of skimmed that, but to me, is this deck a little misleading? Because it doesn't seem to me that Apple is doing away with Dolby Atmos here. What they're doing is enhancing it with very positional related stuff. Like currently, just to give people who aren't Apple ecosystem people a heads up, like one of the things you can do if you've got spatial audio turned on your Apple headphones, and this works with the AirPods and the Beats, is like you can turn a thing on to where it will do phone tracking, for lack of a better word. So when you're doing this spatial audio stuff, it will sound like the audio is coming from your phone, but with full fidelity, right? So if you're moving your phone around, the sound follows the screen, and they're doing something to make that better work with the Vision OS, which is their version of the Oculus Rift, the VR helmet. So, it makes sense that they're getting more into moving away from sort of preferred listener position to something that is actually engaging with the video hardware that you're doing, or with your head tracking or things like that. But aren't they still at the core using the Dolby Atmos render with all of this stuff, or are they moving away from that?
Well, they have their own renderer.
Oh, right. But it's still based on Dolby Atmos, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds to me, I've read through all the documents, and it sounds to me this is a little more, I think, gaming oriented than Atmos is.
Right.
And because what you do, this is just me trying to decipher what they're talking about here. What they're letting you do is they're letting you change the properties of the object. Okay, and an object is just a sound file, right? It could be someone playing a drum, right? It could be a symphony orchestra. It could be an object. Anything you can record and have in an audio clip is an object. And with Atmos, there are fixed tracks in Atmos if you want to use them, 7.1 or whatever. But there's also objects. It's like when I've done Atmos for, the Chesky or, the Audiophile Society project I did last year, I didn't do any tracks. I just did objects. So you can take the object and, with Atmos, you can move it around.
Right.
In any.
So in other words, like let's just give people a concrete the way of visualizing what you're talking about. It wouldn't, let's say you've got the sound of a helicopter in a war movie or something like that. If you make the sound of that helicopter an object, then in a basically a sort of a 3D rendered space, you can drag it in time through that space and say, I would like it to go from XYZ coordinates to XYZ coordinates over this time span. Whereas the old school way of doing it would be, okay, I'm going to pan it from this speaker to this speaker. The advantage of having it be an object instead of having it be a channel is, Dolby Atmos, one of the things it can do is go, oh, well, the best way to position this, if you've got this number of speakers, is to put that sound between these two speakers, or 30% in this one, 70% in the other. Whereas if you've got wide speakers, maybe it's just going to go directly into the wide speaker. But if you don't, it has to sort of extrapolate, things like that. So that's the advantage of having it be an object instead of a sound that is mixed into a specific speaker or number of speakers.
And you can also set it for 3 different, I can't remember the way they refer to it, but like 3 different sort of room sizes, right? Like simulated spaces, like, small, medium, and large.
Right.
The Apple, if I remember correctly, the Fiedler Audio Dolby encoder, which is the one I've used that. And it's actually, you can get a free version of it. And it lets you do 3 different, like small, medium, large. The Apple encoder, if I remember correctly, or the Apple
renderer,
does not give you that option, if I remember correctly. But it's not that big of a deal, So what this lets you do, though, is I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're a video game character and you're in a long hallway, okay? And you're talking to someone and you're saying, "Hi, Bob, I'm going to use my, ray gun to shoot people," or whatever it is that you do in those games that you kids play. And, Bob will talk to you and go, "Okay, cool, Dennis, have at it."
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like if you start walking away from him, though, even though he's still an object, you're moving away.
Right.
And it can increase the reverb if you so choose, if you're the game designer.
Yeah.
So that when he's in the big hallway and you're much further away from him in the game, then when he says, "Hey, wait, Dennis, I forgot," it'll be more reverberant. And, also, the volume and the amount of echo, Dennis, whatever. Right. So that's all dynamically adjustable if you want it to be.
Something that we in old school hi-fi terms would have just called like room sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it adapts to, where you are relative to the object.
Right.
Okay. And now in movies, I don't see that this would matter in movies because, in movies, it's a fixed thing. And, if you move further away from the person and they're talking to you, then whoever's mixing the movie will probably put more reverb in there, right? So you can do this, but you can't do it dynamically. You can't have it adapt to something that's going on because it's a fixed, the Dolby Atmos mix is a fixed soundtrack. You can't, to my knowledge, you can't make it dynamic like this. So this is like from a intellectual property standpoint, I don't know how much Atmos is in this. I'm sure some is because, as we used to say at Dolby when I was there, 25 years ago, they always said, like, you can't write a codec without trampling on somebody's intellectual property.
Yeah.
That's why AAC is a combination of, originally 4 companies and they added Apple. So 5, because they're like, hey, let's not fight it out in court. Let's all work together. And then we just share.
Right.
And I expect Dolby's still getting a piece of this. I don't think Apple, engineered their way around all this stuff. And Apple and Dolby have a partnership that goes back 25 years or so anyway. So,
yeah.
And how careful Silicon Valley companies are about their partnerships. They would never screw around one of their partners. So I'm joking.
You forgot to use the sarcasm font on that one, buddy.
I'm prodding you into an anti-capitalist rant.
Try to behave. I will say this though. I want to interject real quick. I'm digging deeper into this engineering document than I did before, and I noticed at the end, like they're talking about command line stuff you can do. They're using first order ambisonics in this. I mean, that is the OG spatial audio, man. That's like, I don't know if there's older spatial audio technology than ambisonics, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So,
what is ambisonics, Dennis? Why don't you enlighten us to that?
Oh boy, I raised my hand at the wrong time. I mean, it's basically just a way of doing a sort of spatial audio effect, giving multi-dimensions to 2-channel audio for headphones, right? It's a binaural thing, but it's basically a type of processing that can make your 2-channel audio sound like it has height elements and depth elements. So the way of processing to use, different sort of psychoacoustic triggers to make it sound like something is happening in actual 3-dimensional space. But as far as I know, it's the original way of doing it. And like the oldest way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's before my time. I can't really remember. I remember there being quad, which certainly was surround sound, but it was not ambisonics.
Right.
But if you look at like an ambisonics mic, it's got 4 capsules that point in different directions. And you basically record that and you can fold it down or, manipulate it in ways that will give you an ambient sound environment depending on what speakers you expect the music to be played back on.
But you can use like an ambisonics plugin in any DAW to sort of add, spatial elements to something you recorded even in mono with a mono mic. So
that part I'll confess I don't understand all that well. The microphones I understand. I have not had the pleasure of using one. I really would like to. But they're a little on the expensive side. There's a Rode one for, I don't know, like $1,000 or something. And there's just more complexity to my life. And, for my own personal music recording, since I'm never in a good sounding space, it's irrelevant anyway.
Yeah.
But I guess this is only going to work for Apple devices, right?
I don't see, it's going to be baked into the OS of everything except for watchOS, which means it's only going to work with your AirPods and that's all varieties of AirPods or even the Macs or the Beats stuff that has Apple Spatial Audio built in. So this isn't going to be something I don't think you're going to be able to get with but again, this article talks about the fact that this is really mostly for the VR headset, which has its own headphones built in. So I don't know how applicable this is to the population at large. I don't know if this is going to change the way things are done on Apple Music or anything like that. And I
doubt it.
I sort of disagree with this framing of even saying the words Dolby Atmos is safe for now implies that this is a challenger to Dolby Atmos. And that is the thing that I couldn't wrap my head around in reading all of this stuff. I don't think they're, this is just it's a different kind of thing, right? It's used for a different purpose. So it seems to me that the whole Dolby Atmos is safe for now thing was basically just a sort of bait in a way, or maybe the author just doesn't really understand the distinction, or maybe they're just going on the fact, like I said in the intro, that Samsung's trying to get around. They don't want to license Dolby Atmos either. So there's something in the air with that. And maybe the author was thinking that Apple's doing the same, but I don't agree. I think it's a different ballgame. Apple and Google do want to, get rid of Dolby. So, or at least not have to license Atmos from them. And so that's where they're starting that Eclipse thing, which we still don't know what it is. The only problem with all this stuff is that, Atmos is already lossless if you want it to be. And it can already steer sound in, every direction. What do you want it to do if you, how do you build on that? Right. And Apple's doing it in a way that specifically, to me, makes sense for dynamic applications like games, but not for anything else, probably. I mean, I guess you could, but, it just doesn't seem to make any sense for anything else. And Atmos works beautifully for all that stuff. And like I said, I've done Atmos mixes, and you can do amazing things with it. I was able to, David Chesky's a much better recording engineer and musician than I am, but I was able to kind of take his stems from one of his tunes, and with Atmos, I got pretty close to what he was able to accomplish with his, whatever magical mega dimensional sound stuff, which is just a bunch of different techniques he does with. I don't know. He won't tell me. But I was able to do what I wanted to with Atmos, and I've not heard. I would like it to be better for headphones, but that's going to, as we talked about before, that's going to require better virtualization, including measurement of individual HRTF. That's the only way to make that work. And until somebody figures that out, you're not really going to improve on Atmos, in my opinion, except as Apple seems to have done here. Yep. The new thing, by the way, we were saying Apple Spatial Audio Format. That's like the old thing. This new thing they're calling Apple Positional Audio Codec, right? So it's not even a format. It's more of a delivery mechanism that allows some of these more interactive elements. I mean, that's the big news.
I tell you one thing I hate about Atmos is that, all the stuff we did for the Audiophile Society project, we just rendered as stereo, okay? Because we were putting it out on as a downloadable music file.
Yeah.
And we did not intend for it to be played on Atmos, systems that can decode Atmos. I wanted to, however, it's just too much of a pain. You have to, there's a Dolby Atmos, I can't remember what it's called, but it's an Atmos renderer thing that basically gives you all your files and everything for Atmos and packages them up in a way that the Atmos decoder can read. But it's like $300, which is not bad. But you got to have a Mac to run it on, which I don't, other than my work Mac, which I don't use for this stuff. And I was talking to John Kellogg, ex-Dolby, ex-DTS, about this, and he said, "Yeah, most of the studios, if they're using PCs, you have to have another PC to render it on. You have to basically connect two PCs, which,
jinkies.
It's a little too Mac centric for me, so I'm just not a Mac guy. So I would love it if Dolby had the $300 thing that worked on a PC. I would have bought it, and I would have rendered those files out and." Would anybody have listened to him? Probably not, but who cares? You would have.
I would have, yeah.
You're the only one.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to offer full Dolby Atmos files like that at some point, but I'm not gonna buy a Mac, to do that.
I see with the Apple thing, they're gonna be able to do this with DaVinci Resolve, which is I think you and I have talked about DaVinci. That's what I've moved over to for video editing. It's actually a free video editor, but it's a video editing suite that also has full support for plugins. So you can do like all the plugins that we've purchased for Reaper. You can just bring up in your audio signal chain on DaVinci Resolve. And again, and that even on the free version, you don't have to buy the super expensive, like $100 version that would be like for professional video editing for like what you and I are doing. Do the free download and all the stuff we've got in Reaper, we can just pull right in.
Wow.
Yeah, this new Apple positional thing apparently works in DaVinci Resolve. So it's going to be much more accessible, much more democratized, I guess you would say.
I will say, though, I get a little mad, like at the Eclipse thing, where they're like, we're trying to democratize Dolby Atmos. I'm kind of like, dude, Fiedler Audio makes a plugin for free.
Yeah.
Your expense with Atmos is in, and it's been available. It's in Logic for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like your expense in Dolby Atmos is the extra speakers, and you're not going to help people out with that. So shut up.
Yeah. Right. But, they're probably having to pay Dolby like $1 for every device they make that's got Dolby Atmos in it,
Probably.
Well, it's got to go up, man. They got to cut expenses somehow. So there you go. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think I got anything else to say about this one, buddy. You want to wrap it up and do some credits?
Go ahead and do whatever credits you feel you can do.
Well, I was going to start off by saying this is a Butterburger production, as always, which means it's me and you, man. This is our thing.
It is.
What do you want to say?
And who's editing this?
You're editing this one and the next one, because I took 2 in a row.
Yeah. So musical credits. We're going to I'm going to include one tune from our friend Mike Gaughn, who sadly passed away a while back, and who I didn't realize was a really talented film composer. And so we have some of his music we're featuring. And, I was listening to the stuff that you put in last week, and I was like, oh man, he was a real composer. I'm just a dude who finds a little groove and then thinks of some crappy melody to put on it and bangs on some drums like a wind-up monkey playing cymbals. But
wow, that's a visual.
But anyway, I'm going to have one tune, which I thought, I should write a tune that's in tribute to Mike. And it's a double tribute, actually. It's partly a tribute to Mike, who, for anybody who doesn't know, was a very present, but not all that much heralded, audio journalist of many years, but he was more behind the scenes. He's more the editor type than the writer type.
Yeah.
And although brilliant editor. Yeah. And, but anyway, so another friend of mine, Bill Ragle, passed away several months ago. And I was just down in Houston, and his wife, Ray, gave me this instrument. she's like, hey, I got this thing Bill had that I bought for him in the Philippines. You want it? I'm like, what is it? And she's like, well, I'll bring it down. And it's called a bandoria. Yeah. And this is the Filipino version of a Spanish instrument. In Spain, it's a 12-string instrument with 6 courses of string. In other words, 6 pairs of strings, like a 12-string guitar, but smaller.
Right.
This one is 14 strings. The lowest string on it is just a single string. The next 2 lowest strings are pairs of strings. The 3 highest strings are triple sets of strings.
So crazy.
So the headstock on this thing is about as long as the rest of the instrument. And it makes, as you can imagine, you cannot get that many strings all in tune with each other. So it choruses like crazy. Basically, I just realized pretty quickly, like, this thing was designed to make a lot of noise. So I did a little composition that's kind of like, it's, faux exotic. It kind of sounds like Kung Fu Panda goes to Turkey or something like that.
Nice.
But I hope you'll enjoy it. It's a tribute to Mike and to Bill.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I love it. I can't wait to hear it.
That's the second composition.
Very nice.
Not the more polished one, which will be Mike's composition.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. By the way, I'm going to put up a post, like, by the time you hear this, I will have put up the post submitting or asking for submissions for questions for our Ask Us Anything video coming up.
Yeah.
I meant to do that this weekend and I forgot about it. So I'm going to do that soon. So if you're a patron, go ahead and start submitting questions to us. If you're not a patron and you want to submit questions, now'd be the time to sign up because, $3 a month, not bad. So anyway, yeah, ask us what you want to ask us and we're going to answer them.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, but patrons, stick around. We got one more for you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. If you liked what you heard and wish there'd been a little bit more of it, we got some good news for you.
Indeed, we do. If you check out patreon.com/Audio Unleashed, all one word, you can get new episodes a little earlier than everybody else.
And sometimes it's like a day or two early. Sometimes it's nearly a week. We never really know until we start editing.
But the big plus is that you get extended cuts of every episode. And usually that's going to mean a whole extra segment that's about maybe a geekier topic or something that's a little more personal to us or something that's just going to really appeal to the hardcore Audio Unleashed listener.
Yeah, what it boils down to is if you're somebody who would support Audio Unleashed on Patreon, we're going to make sure the bonuses to every episode are really aimed straight at your interests.
Yeah, and so if you want to hear these segments, you can subscribe to our Patreon for $3 a month, which is less than I spend every single day on my cup of coffee when I go to Starbucks to write my boring articles.
Yeah. One more time with that URL, that's patreon.com/Audio Unleashed.
Or Audio
Unleashed. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.